It's 11. Okay, we are live now.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the workshop webinar on wildlife photography by Alok. I think we'll wait for a couple of more minutes before we begin. So, students, kindly ask all your classmates to join quickly. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. I hope I'm audible. Uh, I welcome all of you to this very exciting webinar on wildlife photography. I think wildlife photography is considered to be one of the very sought after genres for all photographers, particularly because it connects all of us with the nature. And as a result, you become one with the nature when when you are a wildlife photographer. So one of the very important aspects of wildlife photography is the fact that it gives you the ability to understand nature. It gives you the ability to understand the behavior of the wildlife or the wild animals. And that's very, very important as part of being a wildlife photographer. And today we have Mr. Alok Katkar with us. We are very excited to have him. He's also just joined Seamedu newly. He's also our colleague. I'm very happy to introduce Alok. Welcome, Alok, to the webinar. Let me just very briefly introduce Alok here to all of you. Alok Katkar is a photographer based in Pune with more than 5 years of field experience in wildlife photography. He specializes also in product photography and also in video and image editing. He has worked for some of the renowned brands like Ranka Jewelers, Jupiter Hospital, VH1 Supersonic, and Reserve Bank of India. His images, his wildlife images particularly, have been published on several platforms like National Geographic, Canon, Smart Photography, and Pune Mirror, along with various national level exhibitions. I am very proud to introduce you to Alok, and we are very glad to have him with us for the show today. And so sit back and enjoy. You're going to have a very immersive experience and understand wildlife photography from Alok's point of view. So thank you, everybody. Alok, over to you, Alok. Thank you.
Is my audio and video clear?
Yes, Alok.
First of all, thank you, Subhash, for this gracious introduction. And thanks to Seamedu for giving me this opportunity to connect with all of you. And good morning to everyone. Today, I will be presenting a workshop or a webinar on wildlife. So, as Subhash had said, that I have spent quite some time on field. And today I would like to share my experiences of what I have learned in the field with all of you. This webinar will not be focused on technical aspects, what to do technically for a wildlife photography. That is a huge topic. So today, what we are doing is what I'm going to tell you is what I have learned in the field. And I think it may help you to take your art further. So now I am just sharing my screen and
Before we start, we will reserve all the questions at the end of the slides. So kindly feel free to ask questions in the chat box, and we will pick up all the relevant questions, uh, post the slides. Thank you. Go ahead.
so is the slideshow visible?
Yes.
So the art of wildlife photography. We will start with the very basic question that what is wildlife photography? We discuss about the wildlife, we discuss about taking wildlife pictures. So what exactly is wildlife photography? So it is a documentation of various forms of wild fauna in their natural habitat. So what does the wild fauna includes? What does the wildlife photography includes under its umbrella? It's mammals, bird, reptiles, insects. So taking their pictures in their natural, in their wild habitat, not in the captivity. That is called as a wildlife photography. Now, wildlife is one of many genres of photography, but it is very much different than all of them. So why it is different? The first one and the most important part is that the aspect of control. You don't have the control over the subject behavior, all the lighting conditions, all the surroundings. So what exactly this means? You cannot control how the certain animal or a certain bird will behave in that condition. Second, you can't judge the lighting conditions. It changes frequently in the wild. Sometimes it's very harsh sunlight, sometimes it's very shade. So that's not your in control. And third, it's your surrounding. You cannot control your surrounding conditions. So basically, most of the wildlife photography happens due to the nature of mercy of nature. I'm extremely sorry. So in that case, creatively using your present situation to your advantage is important in wildlife photography. Also, since all of you are into in photography, you know that you face several problems, several issues on field, and you have to solve it right there to get your shot. It's similar in wildlife photography. You have to use the present situation. You cannot change it. So make that your advantage and take the picture. The last sentence is patience, passion, and practice are the keys. So you often heard that wildlife requires lots of patience, especially in bird photography, you require patience. So yes, patience is very important. Passion, passion for your work, your art, uh, the wildlife is very important, and the practice. So the more practice you do, the better you will become at what you do. Now, the categories of wildlife photographs. Basically, you cannot divide wildlife photography, but these are some of the basic things or categories which comes under the umbrella of wildlife photography. So one is a portrait. Of course, I am aware that we are all familiar with what portraits are. We also shoot them in a studio or in natural light. So in the case of wildlife, portrait is that which emphasizes the facial expressions or the feature of that particular subject, whether it is a bird or an animal. If it shows its facial expressions, usually it's taken in the mid close-up or close-up shots, those will come under this particular category. The second one is environmental portraits, or it is very commonly known as a habitat shots, the one which shows the habitat of that particular subject. For example, a snow leopard surrounded by snow-capped mountains, that is an environmental portrait shot because it shows the animal as well as the surrounding where it can be seen. Third one is animal behavior. So what animal behavior shows? It shows the behavioral patterns and explains the personality of that subject. So animals, more than we think, they engage in certain activities, interactions. So those things can come under the animal behavior. So what are the uses of that for recording that shot? That it adds a storytelling aspect to your image. Fourth one is an action shots, like the birds in flight or the animals in a movement or making a kill. Those things most of the time come under the action shots. The fifth one is creative images. So as in all other genres of photography, you can use your techniques, your knowledge, your conditions to produce some images which are not naturally shot by someone. So there are concepts like shooting monochrome or low-key images, shooting silhouettes, or minimalistic images. Those come under the creatives. And the most important thing is these kind of images give a drama to your image. Those are the out-of-the-box images. And the last one is conservation shots. This is becoming very trendy these days, becoming very popular these days. So as the surroundings are changing, the population is increasing, the human encroachment is increasing. For that, there are conflicts happening. So recording those conflicts come under the conservation issues. You must have seen the pictures like animal died on the road as the car has hit him, or few around a year back there was an image of a bird where a plastic bag could be seen around his face. Those things come under the conservation shots, a very demanding field currently. So these are the broad categories of wildlife photographs. Coming to the very important question, again one of the frequently asked these days, the people who come new into the photography, and they are like, which camera we should buy, which camera is good for wildlife, which is good for weddings and everything. So particularly in case of wildlife photography, the best camera is the one that you have with you. We are all aware that wildlife requires specialized equipments, especially the long telephoto lenses or heavier camera accessories. So yes, that's important. It adds value. It gives you an extra edge over your work to your art. However, it is perfectly fine to start with an equipment that you already possess. So since you are a photographer, you are students, you should not say that I will only take the shot, or I cannot take the shot because I didn't had a long lens. Practice with the small lenses that will be make you more familiar with your equipment, and then you can gradually move to the higher end equipments. So it's perfectly fine starting with your current equipment. Now, some of the most commonly used equipments on the field. So I have shortlisted just few of them. There are many things, but these are the very basic requirements. One is a camera body. Now, what kind of camera bodies? So preferably one with a higher FPS, that is a frames per second. It is helpful in recording the high action shots where your camera buffer doesn't get filled up. So that's where the high FPS comes in hand. Second is a better low light performance. The reason is most of the sightings or the good movements happen during the late evening or early morning in wildlife where the light is less. So if you have a camera that is better in low light performances, that's a good thing. And third one is a decent focusing system. Since in wildlife, your subjects are moving fast, you need a camera with a decent focusing system so that you don't lose focus on your subject. So these are the basic requirements. The second one is telephoto lenses, very discussed part in the wildlife, preferably with a focal length about 300 mm. It is very true that you need telephoto lenses, especially for bird watching or bird photography. However, for normal wildlife pictures, for shooting mammals, length about 300 mm is perfectly fine. Third one is a tripod, monopod, or a beanbag. Now, most of you have, I think you should have used a tripod and monopod. And beanbag, it is generally used in wildlife for giving the support to your equipment. So the advantage is it can be kept on the ground, it can be kept on the car window. And why these supports are required? Because once the movement is happening very fast, so your camera should be very stable. And second, the equipments are usually very heavy in wildlife. The lenses are quite heavy. So for that, you need some kind of a stability for your equipment. So that's where these things comes in handy. And fourth one is a teleconverter. So what teleconverter is? It is an artificial extender which you attach in between your lens and your camera body, and it gives you an added focal length, added zooming. So it gets easier for you to have a zoom shot. So that's what the teleconverter does. So all these are things which are commonly used in wildlife. Again, the last sentence, build relationship with your camera. It's very important. So you should be completely aware of your camera. Like when you have to suddenly change the settings, you should be aware without looking at the buttons that what should I change to get that desired effect. In field, you cannot just like look at the buttons and then you adjust it. It takes time. So build relationship with your camera, get familiar with your equipment and master the techniques, and it will help you to utilize your equipment to its full potential. If you know how to compose it, you know the technicality, you understand it, then you can utilize your equipment to its full potential. So that's very important. Now, as I have said before starting the workshop, is that what I will be sharing with you is my experiences, and even what I have learned during my work in the field. So let's start with it. The composing your shot. What are the elements that help you in composing the shot, or um, the points that will help you to get a better picture? The first and very important, especially in the array of wildlife, that understanding the subject behavior. So why you first, the question is why you should understand the behavior. If you understand the behavior of your subject, you will be able to anticipate, at least up to some extent, able to anticipate its movement, what it will do, and then set your camera settings, your frame accordingly. So that's the advantage of learning the subject behavior. It is an essential part in wildlife, and animals and birds often engage in actions and shows emotions. So if you understand that when if this thing is going to happen or if this thing can happen, then it will help you. Now I have shared two examples here. So what kind of things you could anticipate? The first one is the behavior of certain bird. So most of the times what happens is the bird is sitting and it makes certain kind of a movement before taking the shot, before taking the flight, I'm sorry. So we always like to take the flying bird shots because that looks good. So how do you know that? So if you observe that bird before taking the flight, it shows certain kind of a body movement. If you learn to anticipate it, it will help you to set your camera at a proper composition, at proper setting. Then you will be able to capture that movement. Or anticipating where the tiger would cross the road. Now, if most of you have done the safari in tiger parks, you see the guides or the drivers saying whenever they see the tiger, whenever he is about to cross the road, they always say that the sir, the tiger will cross, keep your cameras ready. Why? Because they have learned to anticipate it, because they have a knowledge. And when he says that, you adjust your camera settings and you get a good shot. So how these people learn? Because it's their daily work. For us photographers, it is not possible to go there daily. So as much as time you spend on the field, dedicatedly on the field, and if you are communicating with the field experts, like the naturalist, or whenever you are on the safari, I'm sure you people will go into the study tours. So if you go to the wildlife parks, speak with the guides, speak with the drivers, learn the techniques from them, and the ace wildlife photographers. So by speaking with them, by communicating with them, you will get a good knowledge of subject behavior. This is a long process. This cannot happen in just 1 month, 2 months. It takes years for this. But yes, if you start practicing it now, it will be helpful. So now these are the examples. I will show you why the subject behavior is important. So this is the fan-throated lizard, commonly known for its vibrant colors of his fan, or it is known as gular appendage. So that's why it has a vibrant colors which it developed during the mating period, courtship period, which happens during April, May thing. So here, when I went into the field, and this guy is literally small and he was running very fast. So when I have started observing it, what it used to do that he will go on a certain rock or a certain higher platform. He will take the position and then he will open his fan to so the females can see the display. He will open his fan, he will close it. He will again do that movement and then he will step down. So first time I missed quite a few shots because of the speed of that lizard. And now these are the three shots. This is basically a sequence. The first image, this one, is you are seeing it just before the fan opened. Second image, where the fan is completely open. And the third one, when he has retracted that fan. So the display show was complete. Now, these three images are shot within a span of 1 minute. So in the field, it was not even 1 minute. It was just a game of few seconds. It's opened this fan and it was closed. So to record these kind of movements, you need to observe that lizard or that animal, learn how he's behaving, then you will be able to get this shot. Now, I'm sure this is the wonderful shot. Most of us would like to get this one. But yes, it comes with practice. That's why you should keep your eyes open on the field. The second one is this movement, the elephant calves engaged in the play fight. Again, what I have learned from this, most of the times the young calves or the in case of even tiger cubs, they engage in a play fight. It's mostly because of it serves as a experience for their later life. It's a play things. So these were the two calves who were engaged in a play fight. So what happened that in Corbett, when I was in Corbett, these two calves came in front of each other and they did this uh, movement for the first time. So I was quite new for this movement. So I observed it for once or twice. Then I got it that yes, this is a play fight and they are engaging into a activity. So I readied my camera. I have settled the appropriate settings, and then I got the shot. You can see their tusks are locked, their trunks are touched to each other. So these kinds of movement happened in the wild. Third one, this movement particularly happens in case of bird. So bird usually engages in an activity known as a preening. In simple language, it is cleaning their feathers for parasites or things. They clean up their feathers. So that's how they do it with their beaks. Now, this is an Indian vulture, a critically endangered bird. It's not seen regularly. And I was lucky to get very beautiful shots of this bird in Bandhavgarh. So in this case, the vulture was sitting and it was spending his time for preening. Now, what used to happen is his neck was used to go down in between his feathers and it was invisible. So for that, for my case, it wasn't useful. I waited for some time. I observed it, and then I learned to get a perfect movement where you can see the feather is in his beak. And so this is very important. As I'm telling you about this photo, there is one more thing that I would like to tell you. We are all photographers. So the camera I had during this particular shot had a very low FPS. So I wasn't able to get a complete sequence like we do it these days. We just press the button and rapidly you take the shot. No, my camera had a limited FPS value. So it was in my mind not to cross that, because if that could have happened, the buffer would have filled up and I would have missed the moment, which I did for a few shots. So remember how there was a problem and how to overcome it. So that's why the animal behavior is important in wildlife. Now, coming to the next slide, capturing action in wildlife. As I told you, there are many things that happen in wildlife. So how to capture that action? So this bird is a glossy ibis, and you can see a snail before he is swallowing it. So he had just got that snail from the water, and he's just tossing it before he swallows it. So these kind of movements usually happen with, especially with birds like green bee eater. They are commonly seen around cities also. So they have a habit of this. They toss their kill before swallowing it. So those are some beautiful moments you can capture. And this was the shot when I tried to go at eye level, and I think the shutter speed was close to around 4,000, 1/4,000. So this was one shot. The second was osprey. This is a bird of prey commonly found at the water bodies, and he's a very efficient fish hunter and beautiful bird. So it's the shot before he takes his flight. So observe when I told you that birds make certain kind of a movement before taking a shot. So in this case, he was sitting, and when before taking a flight, he just ruffled his feathers, ruffled his wings, and my guide was like, "Sir, he's taking the shot." So he just waited for a few minutes. Then he tilted his body forward, and then he spread his wings. So see, that was the result. I got that movement, and that's how this picture is formed. Now, shooting at eye level. Again, one thing which is very important in wildlife, which can add a different perspective to your image. Now, what shooting at eye level does, puts the viewer into the animal's world. So I will explain what this sentence means. The second is it makes you a subject pop up against the background. And why that happens? It helps to achieve an uncluttered or out of focus background. I'm sorry. So today, even for all of the genres, we are like, we want a clean background, we want out of focus, the blurred background. So shooting at eye level does help in that. It gets you a good background. Now this image, it was shot in Bandhavgarh. Again, a very late evening shot around 6:30, 6:45, 6:30 p.m. in the evening. So it has lots of grades. So this is the picture going eye level. Now, to clarify that in the reserve forest, those who do not know, in reserve forest, you cannot step down from your gypsy. So taking a eye level shot is a challenge. Here, I try to go below at the eye level as much as possible. So you see, you get a blurred ground here, you get a sharp animal, and the background, the trees are blurred. So that is the importance. Second thing, the tiger was fortunately looking in my camera, which added an extra drama to the image. So whenever you see the picture, your eyes go directly towards eyes of that tiger. So it engages you. The third one, which I observe in this image, is that look at the size. So you get an idea of how the true size or the true strength of that animal is. So you can see this male tiger, he's very huge. So look at the size and how the picture conveys its size and its power. Now, another of fan-throated lizard. I was talking about out of focus background. Here, you see the sky, the blue colored sky, and the ground. It has merged beautifully into a single gradient style. The foreground, there was a rock. See, it is blurred out. And I told you that it puts you in the world of a subject. So what exactly it means? When a viewer or even you see this picture, you feel that you have got to the level of that animal and now you are looking at it. So you go into his world, looking from above or looking from below. Those are the different angles, but this is a very desired angle in wildlife. Very good if you can get it in your pictures. Now, the next part, focusing on eyes. So whether it is a human or an animal, eyes are very important. Even for taking the portraits, we always strive to get the eyes, the clear eyes, the eyes that convey the emotions, a very well lit eyes. So why it's important? First, it is a very important part of your composition. The second, it introduces the emotions in that frame. And third, it conveys the mood. We often say that look at the eyes and you will get what kind of mood it has. So that's what it does. In wildlife, getting eye contact it adds another dimension and makes it impactful. However, it is not always possible to get the eye contact because the subjects are unpredictable in wildlife. But yes, you can try it. Now, I'm going to share an example with you that how the image changes, how with the eye contact and without the eye contact looks like. So see this picture, this is a golden jackal. The first picture, this one he was looking away from the frame, away from the camera. You don't get the complete character or complete behavior of that species, the jackal. However, when he looks in your lens, look at his face, how it has suddenly changed. You can see the cunning look on his face. So that's where the image changes. The same background, almost the same camera angle, the same animal, the same setting. Even the camera settings wasn't changed. Just look how the images are different. One is looking away from the camera, and second, looking straight in the viewer's eyes, straight in your camera. So that is the power of eye contact. Second, Asiatic lion, look at the eyes and catch light. I'm sure those who have learned the studio lightings or even the natural lightings, catch light it shows as a source of light in your subject's eyes. So look at this lion's eyes. You can see the catch light, the white spot here, and his amber eyes, the orangish amber eyes. How well they have lit up. Uh, Mind you, this was taken post the rain. It has rained in the Gir, and when it was quite cloudy and just the sunlight was coming out of clouds, I got this image. So it was kind of a little bit of directional lighting. And look at the eyes, how impactful the eyes are. So that's why I say focus on the eyes. The eyes are important. Now the next image is, this is one of my favorite picture. Why? Because it shows the emotions. I told you why eyes shows the emotions, especially if you are shooting babies, the like say cubs or in case of an infant grey langur or elephant calves, their eyes speak a lot. They have emotions, uh, innocence in their eyes. So look at this baby and the innocence it conveys to his eyes. So he was sitting in his mother's lap. So the way he is looking at the camera, it makes the impact. A second, why this image looks closer to us is that look at his face, look at his hands. It's very much similar to us humans. So in that case, image makes an impact because it connects us to that animal. So one more thing, if you look closely into the eyes of that infant, you will be able to see the ground, the surrounding, as well as the blue sky. So it was very beautifully reflected in his eyes. So I think that's the importance of eye contact, or that's the importance of eyes in wildlife. Very important part. Now coming to a very different part, the creative wildlife photography, which I have learned through my experiences and with lots of experimentation. So whenever we go out in the field, so mostly we try to get a portraits with a clean background, the out of focus background, or we try to get the high action shots of wildlife. That is perfectly normal. But however, if you move forward, you should experiment with the present lighting conditions or the compositions or the subject to produce some different images, some incredible images, which are different from the regular portrait or the action shots. Now, this is the area of wildlife where your imagination plays a very important part. Your imagination, your composition knowledge, your aesthetical views. If you combine all of that, you will get some truly different pictures, which are out of the regular work, regular portrait. So these are some different pictures. It will take some time, but if you start practicing it, you will get into it. You will like this very much. So there are a variety of pictures, variety of creative aspects in which you can shoot the wildlife. I have listed out few which I have tried myself and from which I have got very good results. So these are high key and low key images, minimalistic, monochrome, the framing your subject in some way, the still outs, and a different perspective. What is different perspective? I will get into it. Now, first, the high key image. This is a bird known as a Brahmini starling. You can see the uh, name. So usually for birds, when we shoot against the sky, most of the time the lighting gets different because the sky is as usual over brightened and it messes up your exposures. To overcome that, you can try something like this. So what hiking means in a wildlife is that the background is white or it has a higher highlights, but your subject is well lit up. It is perfectly exposed. So that's what it means in a high key image. So for birds, you can try this out, high key image. Second is a low key image of gray langurs. Now, the story behind this picture is that this is shot around at 6:30 in the morning. It's not completely black. There was little light, and the surrounding was completely, a typical forest floor with leaves and branches and everything. And this is little bit edited, but yes, the main file is very much similar to this. The black is there. So you think what kind of technical knowledge I have used here. And the monkeys were beautifully backlit. The sun was rising behind them and it was falling on their furs. So look at the image, what kind of lighting they had given. And now when I said that it creates a drama in your image, now you will get it what that drama means. So Loki basically image is the picture where the shadows or the blackness is dominantly present. So that is a Loki image. The third one is a minimalistic image of Indian wildlife. And you can also call this it's an environmental portrait. It shows the environment. So Little Run of Kutch is a vast expanse of barren land. And the Indian wildlife, which is similar to our domestic donkeys. So those are found only in those areas, in the areas of run. So uh, when I shot this image, one of the best advantage of LRK, if you go there, is that you can step down and you can get the eye level shots, as many as you want. So that's the best thing about LRK. So I had composed this shot where you get to see the animal, its habitat, which is very important. It is only found in those areas. So its habitat, and as well as expanse of the run. You can show the your viewer that how much huge or how much vast that land is. The run is vast. You get the sensation of a feeling that how far vast the environment is and how the subject looks small compared to it. So this is one kind of image which you can try in open lands, like even for grasslands, you can try these options going minimalistic. Again, one of my very favorite image, and it took me some time to make experimentation with these images. It was a result of experimentation, and I was lucky to win an award for this image. Why I am telling this? Understand that if you learn to get these kind of images, they are very different than the one those are normally shot. So I will show you how this image even came into an existence. And if you are wondering that what is exactly those black colored lines, what these black lines are, I think you should drop in the chat box what's your guess is, and I will then tell you then what these black textures are. I will then tell you the guess. Now, this this was how the my image was formed. Same bird, same location, almost the same camera settings, and almost the same perspective. For I'm sorry, the angle. First image, just a bird, the water. It's looking like a high key image because the sunlight was very harsh inward, and it was a complete. The water was looking completely overexposed. So the bird and his uh, reflection in the water. So this was the one image. It was fine. I did like this image, but then I decided to try and go for a second image. This is the second image. I was talking about framing your picture. So this was a bush which was in front of the my lens, and taking it as a foreground element, I composed it with the bird. So you can see the difference between the two frames. Why this is how this is different and how this is different. It has added the second image has added a depth in it. Now coming to the third picture. This was something then I again moved on to and tried this. Uh, if you have any guesses and try your best, put your guesses in the chat box. If it didn't happen at the end of this session, I will tell you that what exactly was in this image, what these textures were. And yes, this bird, the black-winged stit, it is not very rare bird. It can be commonly seen around water holes in city. This is a very usual bird. The next, the silhouettes. Again, very commonly used. You are aware of this. This was shot at Corbett when during the sunrise, the elephants were crossing the river and the water was looking golden due to the sunlight. So that's when I tried to get the silhouette. The stock image, it was taken at the very beginning of my journey into wildlife, very initial stage. This was during the sunset. The bird was standing lone on the branch, and I managed to get the sun in a good exposure, the colors, and this is again one of my very favorite images. Now, I was talking about the perspective, especially you can try it out with the monkeys. Since I told you they are very much similar to us humans, you can try the different perspective. Now, look at his hands. The way he has placed it, that's how we usually place our hands. The green colored part of the wall, which adds a punch of the color, and the texture of his hand, how it's looking very much similar to humans. So see, that's how you compose the different perspective. You take the different perspective to shoot the very common animal. So whenever you are going into the wildlife, don't just be like, I would shoot tigers or nahi to kuch nahi. Don't do that. Look around and you will get very different images. Now, storytelling images. What exactly is storytelling images? So several times wild animals or even birds interact with they certain make movement. They interact with their surroundings with artificial or natural elements. So these are the moments you should capture to make a story which conveys a story. Now, this image, this was shot in the Nagzira. You can see the red car. There is a guy looking back to see where the leopard has gone, and the leopard is lurking behind that car only. So look at the impact this picture makes. It is not a complete portrait of leopard, not a habitat shot. It is a very different shot. The car is there, but look how different the image looks. The next one is a elephant calf facing a gypsy. So again, a very different shot, how it looks. The small baby had just faced a gypsy, and look the overall setting, how it's looking. The third, the vultures. Now, vultures don't usually interact. Most of the time, when they come together, most of the time what happens is a fighting. Here, these two vultures weren't interacting. I had composed this shot to look like they are interacting. You see their necks slightly went down. They are looking like they are looking at each other. Their expressions is looking like they are interacting. So the moment wasn't there. I just conveyed different with my perspective. So these are the storytelling images. So I have concluded with the parts of what you can do or what tips you can follow. Now we are coming towards the end of our workshop. Now planning your shot, why it's important. Like every other genres, whenever you are going out in the field, you prepare for it. You prepare what kind of equipments you need, what accessories you need. It's similar in wildlife. So these are the 4 points. First, research about the location. If you are going on a study tour or a personal tour, research about the location, what you are visiting over there, what kind of habitat it has. The second, what are the well-known and common species there? So is it a tiger? Is it a rhino? Is it a bird sanctuary? Or is it something different? So search in that. Third, what equipments you will need for a place like Bharatpur, like for birds, you need a longer lenses with good support like tripod or beanbag. In jungle, for shooting large animals, you don't have to carry a very large lenses. So you can rent out, you can plan your equipment accordingly. You don't have to go there blindly and then say, I didn't get the shot. There was this, there was that. No. So learn it. Fourth, it's what kind of shots to expect. You are expecting portraits or wide angles or environmental shots. Like for example, LRK, you get very good wide angles in the field. For bird sanctuaries, you get portraits. So think about it. What kind of shots you are going to get in the field? You are a photographer, so you are not going there as a tourist. So you must have your shoot planned properly. So when you go there, you don't miss the pictures. Now, the ethical practices in wildlife. Since we have focused more towards the photography, and it's happening that everyone is focusing towards only the photography aspect, there are certain ethics to this field. Very neglected these days, but you should follow it. Make it as a standard procedure to follow it whenever you go. There are many things, but these are the very basic things that you should follow as a photographer. One is safety is the top priority. Taking a picture at while taking a risk at the cost of your safety is not worth, because up to some extent wildlife is not potentially it's a bit dangerous. And second is it's because there are wild animals which are untamed, so you cannot mess with them. So safety is your priority. Don't do any heroics for taking a picture. Second, you avoid using flash at all cost. If you don't have a light, try your best, your technicalities to get the shot. If you don't get it, put your equipment down and just look at the scene. But don't use the flash, either your camera flash or a mobile flash. First, it agitates the animal or it aggravates it. So that's a very terrible situation. So please avoid using flash. That's very important. Third, avoid disturbing them and maintain the safe distance. Whenever you are shooting a picture, not in compulsory safaris, if you go out for birding also, avoid disturbing them and maintain the distance. Don't make the noise. The fourth, do not handle the animals, very important. Most of the time, if you are taking pictures of snakes uh, or the insects, do not handle them. First, it could be dangerous for you. Or second, it is very agitating for the animal itself. So kindly refrain from it. And last is avoid manipulating the nature for the good picture. I have seen these practices out in the field. Just because we are not getting a good background, the bushes are ripped off, the small trees are cut, just because to get a good picture. So don't do that. It's not worth it. Don't destroy the habitat. Now, the last part, get inspired. You always learn, you never stop learning, no matter how much experience you get, you never stop learning. So, what I have learned from the photographers by watching their work. So, there are many great photographers from whose work you can learn. So, I have named 5 photographers here. One is a Steve Winter, who has, if you like the wildlife photojournalism side of wildlife, Steve Winter's pictures will help you. Will Bernard Lucas, the man who introduced beetle cam, wide angle shots in wildlife, he is the one. Third one is a David Lloyd. Again, if you like fine art wildlife photography, there is no one like him. You should follow his work. The fourth one is a Sudhir Shivram, one of the very well-known photographers, wildlife photographers from India, excellent in his technical knowledge and editing, that how much you should do and how much you should not do, you will get to learn from him. And fifth is a Shahzam. Uh, if you want a surrealistic look, the power of how post-processing works in wildlife, you can look at his pictures. Now, you should follow them. You can get their names on Instagram also. So now I have reached the end of my presentation. I hope you have liked it, and I hope you have learned something from it which you can use into your work. Now session is open for Q&A. If you have any questions or a guess about the frame, just add it in the chat box and I will try my best to answer it. Thank you, Subhash. You can take it over from here.
Yes, that was a wonderful presentation and great insights on wildlife photography. Thank you, Alok. Now the floor is open for questions. Dear students, kindly, if you have any questions to ask, kindly put it in the chat box. So Alok, to begin with, I have a question. Alok, how does a person start his journey in wildlife photography? What are the things that are needed to push yourself to start?
Okay. So the very basic thing is, uh, first go out of your house. Come out of your house. Explore the smallest areas around your house. It's not compulsory that you directly go into the reserve forest for wildlife. No. Anyways, the COVID situation is increasing. So explore the parks, the nearby parks, your backyard, and your terrace, the small gardens, the nearby hotspots. So that's why you will learn to get accustomed with wildlife photography. That is the part where you can practice best. So you will get a lot of time to get familiar with your equipment, and from there you can advance into more of a real wildlife world.
Thanks. That was quite a good insight with regard to how you can begin your journey in wildlife photography. We have a question from Siddharth Dhade. He asks the following question, sir: what will be the income source of wildlife photography, or for a wildlife photographer?
Okay, so for the career in wildlife photography, the most important part that you have to remember is that it takes certain time to build your career. You should have an excellent at par portfolio to reach that level. However, there are certain career options which you can certainly try. One is becoming a photo mentor, taking tours in the jungle and offering your photography knowledge, your mentorship to your clients. It is very booming right now, getting very popular in the industry. But again, for that, you will need lots of knowledge for it. The second option is uh, wildlife documentaries. Your basic knowledge of photography and wildlife will help you in a wildlife documentary. If it's a very good, if you manage to tie up with the big brands, then certainly it's a very good option. But only depending on the wildlife photography is a bit difficult in the initial stage. So I suggest that you take some commercial work at the side by side, and while doing that, focus on your wildlife work. So both of it grows continuously. I think I have answered it. So there is no fixed income source in wildlife. It varies.
Thank you, sir.
Very good. Thank you. That was a great insight. We have a couple of more questions. Avish Gupta has this question. Sir, which book do you prefer to explore wildlife? So do you, Alok, would you recommend any books where students can gain more knowledge on wildlife?
So what I will tell you is from the base where you learn more about the particular animal, what I was telling about it. So first get the field guides. So what the field guides are, it has the information regarding that particular species. For I will type the name in the chat box also. One is Indian mammals by one is the Indian mammals, and second one is a birds of Indian subcontinent. So these are the very good field books I have learned from them, and I still have a habit of carrying these books when I go for my photography work. So it helps you a lot. You can get it on any online platform. Those are the good books to learn from them.
Alok, there's another question from Abhishek Biju Nair. As photographers, we end up shooting in manual mode all the time. And when it comes to wildlife photography, speed is the key.
Right.
Does it become a prerequisite, or how important does it is it to does it become to know some of the exposure settings beforehand? Because sometimes we could lose the shot by the time we end up setting the right exposure. Is the question that is asked by Abhishek.
Correct. So, okay. First, accept that most of the time, at least in the initial phase, you will lose the shot. So don't get disappointed by it. It's the learning process. So even if it happens, it's okay. You will learn from the mistake. So that's good. Second, setting the exposure or getting the correct exposure, it will take certain time to certain experience to get that. However, when I learn to anticipate the situation, when what I was telling you, learn to anticipate, learn to plan it. Shooting in manual mode. So what I personally do is that whenever I go out in the field, my particular focus is on a shutter speed. And then as per that, I adjust my other settings, especially since I am more into bird photography. I work more on the shutter speed. So if you have set one parameter over there, then you can adjust the other parameters as per the requirement. And it's still, I still miss the movements. I still miss to the exposure. You can do some work on the post processing, but it is the learning curve. So one tip I can give you is focus more on a shutter speed to get a good picture. So that's what will help you.
And Alok, how important it is to actually know wildlife to be a wildlife photographer? Can any photographer for that matter, just go to the forest and shoot
Correct.
wildlife, or what is the prerequisite to be a wildlife photographer?
It's not particularly a prerequisite. If you want to excel in that work, the understanding the behavior helps a lot, because when you are going onto the field, that is fine. You are getting dependent on someone. There will be a mentor, there will be a guide, there will be a driver to guide you to take the picture. But however, when you start moving up, when the time comes, and if you decide to make a career in it, and if you are, suppose you are taking a group yourself in the forest, then for that part, learning the behavior is very important, because before telling your clients what to expect or how to shoot the picture, you yourself must be aware of what you are going to do. So that's where it helps. It's not a necessity, but yes, it's an added advantage.
Thanks, Alok. I have one more question. Alok, many times I see that a lot of wildlife photographers end up spending a lot of money purely on the stay. For example, you go to any of these exotic forest locations, the cost is very high. How do you mitigate that? Because there are a lot of like jungle lodges in Kabini itself, charges, they have exorbitant cost. So how do we manage the cost part? Because many times when we go to the forest, we end up spending a lot of money actually. So is there any way to, manage the resources?
So one thing is what I personally follow is I usually go to the parks which are not really very expensive, but still I get a good picture over there. So that's the one thing I personally follow. I The second thing is why I told the student that it is important to keep your commercial work up for wildlife, because wildlife is a very expensive hobby or expensive passion. So to manage that, you should get an income from one side so you can pursue that. Now, it comes to mitigating the cost. I think what usually I prefer is I mostly focus on the safaris or taking it, while slightly reducing the cost on other expense things. But I'm sure if you are planning for any forest, there are multiple options available for stays and everything. So that can be planned with without spending too much.
Oh, that's great. That's great. That's great to hear. Do we have any more questions before we wrap up for the day, students? All right. I think it's been an exciting talk from Alok. I'm sure along with all of you, I personally have gained immense knowledge from the perspective of understanding what wildlife photography is, especially how creative you can be on the field with regard to when shooting backlight and then high key shots, understanding the behavior of animals. So it's a great insight from Alok. Thank you, Alok, for talking to us and giving some immense knowledge in wildlife photography. I also would like to thank on behalf of the students and Seamedu for giving such a great show. Thank you very much.
Thank
So
you, Subhash.
students,
Thanks
so
to all the students.
that's a wrap. Thank you. Thank you.
I think so there is a question here.
Okay. So what is the lens when you go shoot? Is the question.
So the lens, take the lens which has a variable focal length, like the option like 100 or 400 mm or 200 500 mm. There is one more Tamron lens, 18 to 5, I think 400 mm. So you will get the versatile focal length. You can shoot a wide angle as well as go zooming. So those are the things you should remember. You should be versatile in the field.
All right. I think we have one more one last question. I think that's the last question that we can take up. Prajwal asks, when do you go to the forest for doing wildlife photography? Do you have a fear of animals that any animal may attack? And how do you handle the situation?
Okay, so first is, yes, there is always a possibility, because I had told you it is potentially dangerous. Potentially, I'm not saying that it's happen every time and with everyone, but yes, you should be very cautious around wild animals. And yes, for once or twice I have had experiences where I had a close encounter with animals, but it's okay. It's not something you should keep in mind all the time. You should be cautious, but you don't have to be very afraid of that. So you don't worry much about it.
All right. Thanks, Alok. I think that was the last question. And thank you so much. And good day to everybody.
Thank you. Thank you,
Thank
Subhash
you.
sir.
Thank you.